Seeing that I now have a quorum, I'm going to call the Senate Committee on Education and Health to order. And in the interest of time, I want, first of all, to have us call the roll. Good morning, Steve.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum?
We have a quorum. I want to start this morning by bringing up the new Secretary of Education. That's Amy Guidera, and I want her to present to the committee and get everybody to know who she is. Secretary Guidera.
Thank you so much, Madam Chairwoman, and good morning to everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm sorry wires got crossed last week and I wasn't joining you last week, but I'm really happy to be here today, so thank you for the kind invitation. I am honored to be Governor Youngkin's nominee for the Secretary of Education. I have spent my career focus on the importance of ensuring that we are educating every single child for success in life. I am the product of a phenomenal world-class education in public schools and in college and graduate school, and I believe that that education that I received should not be the exception, but should be the rule and should be the norm for every single child in this country, and especially here in the Commonwealth. And that's what we're going to do here in Virginia. We're going to ensure that Virginia is the #1 state in the country where children are given opportunities to access a quality education. We focus on high expectations for every single child. We make sure that we are targeting resources and the time and energy to serve those children and those families that have been left behind and have not had access to quality education. And we're going to make sure that this is the greatest place in the country to live, to work, and to raise a family. And as you all know, by being on this committee, we can't do those things unless we invest in our education system and we make sure we have high expectations for every single child. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm happy to answer any questions about my background, about the administration's work, and I'll stop there and be open for questions.
Thank you, Secretary Guidera. And I know the members of the committee probably have questions, but I want to start by asking the same question that I started with last week, and that is, I know you've had extensive experience in educating children and especially students in Japan, is that correct? Mm-hmm. But my question still remains, what experience or exposure have you in educating minority students? And I'm speaking specifically about Black and brown students.
Madam Chairwoman, my entire career has spent most of it, except for that 1 year, teaching in policy. And every single policy position I've worked on has had a focus on ensuring that we are serving Black and brown children. My passion around information and specifically around longitudinal data is because that allows us to have the opportunity to see every single child, to see every single family, and to ensure that we know what's going on in there, that we can meet those children where they are. And that, to be honest, is why we have lost so many generations of children, especially in our communities of color, is because we haven't seen them. They have been caught up in the law in averages and in cohorts, and we actually haven't had the ability to see each and every child and each other family. And that's what's different right now. And we have the power of really quality information here in the Commonwealth that we have and we should be using to make sure that we can identify every child, his or her needs, what they need, and ensuring that we will get there. And you know, one-size-fits-all education doesn't work because every family and every child has different needs, but you need to be able to see those needs first. We need to have research and evidence based on data about what works to serve different populations that have different needs, whether it be some sort of learning disability or whether it be with food insecurity, whatever it is, we need to understand what that child is facing and then do everything possible to get our resources, time, and energy there. But the one thing we will not compromise on and we will not differ on is the having the same high expectations for every child. And I think that's what's critical, is to say, how do we make sure that we have high expectations so that every child reaches their God-given potential, and at the same time have many, many different ways to ensure that we are educating those children, because every child is different. If you're a parent like I am of more than one child, you know that different children need different ways of educating. They thrive in different situations. What we need to do in the Commonwealth is to make sure we have high expectations for all, and yet we also provide many, many different opportunities for those children to thrive and meet those high expectations, especially our Black and brown children.
Thank you, Secretary Guidera. Senator Locke.
Thank you, and thank you for coming today, and thank you for coming to the Higher Ed Sup the other day. We appreciated hearing about your vision for higher education. My question has to do with, You said that it's important for our schools to have the resources that they need to meet what they have to do. So my question would be, I understand that one of the things that Governor Youngkin has said is that he would withhold funding from those schools that or divisions that do not adhere to executive orders and mandates. How is that allowing those schools to have the resources that they need to educate children? And then will children and parents then be able to have the resources that they need to meet those high expectations that you just spoke of?
Madam Chairwoman, Senator, I have never personally heard Governor Youngkin ever talk about withholding funds or support. This governor is focused on meeting every single family's needs and child's needs and has high expectations for every family and every learner in the Commonwealth. And we are going to work together with you, with local school divisions, with school boards to ensure that we are seeing every child and we are meeting every child at where they are, and also recognizing that we also need to have the record budget and investment in our teachers and our school buildings and our systems to ensure that we are serving every single child. So I think it's just the opposite, that we are committed to a record budget to make sure we are putting the resources into serving families and children and learners at all levels, but especially those that have been left behind and that have not been seen and not been served.
Thank you for that answer. Madam Chair, I have one follow-up question.
Senator Locke?
I've also heard quite a bit about critical race theory. And as someone who has taught critical race theory, I know that that is not in the curriculum of any public school in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Can you explain to me why that is being discussed as an issue in the Commonwealth of Virginia when it is essentially a non-issue? And can you also explain to me what is divisive curriculum or divisive teaching in the Commonwealth?
Madam Chairwoman, this governor has also said that he is going to be responsive to concerns of parents, and these are the concerns that we're hearing, that children are being taught items and having access to materials that are not age appropriate, that they are being asked to take on roles that are inappropriate, they are being put in positions where they are being defined by their race or their sexual orientation, and completely inappropriate, and parents do not want that taught. And what we are going to focus on is, one, learning and doing audits. Senator DeBello and I were talking about this last night. How, as is laid out in Executive Order Number 1, do we ensure that there's greater transparency about what is happening in schools? What is our curriculum? Parents want that, and one of the ways that we need to rebuild our relationships with parents is to focus on trust and building that trust, that our children have been entrusted us, the government, and also our schools, to be a partner in educating their children. And right now, the trust is broken because parents are concerned about what they're hearing about, what their children are coming home and talking about, what their lesson plans are. And so we are first going to rebuild that trust by having greater transparency around what is being taught, what is the curriculum, what is happening in our schools, so that we have a better understanding. And second of all, we are going to invest in teacher training and the best materials in the country to ensure that we are able to teach all of our history, the good and the bad, and we're going to work with national experts to make sure we're doing the best we can to make sure that all of our children have access. So this is not about not teaching history, this is not about having one view of history, this is teaching all of history, but doing it in a way where we are not putting our children in positions where they should not be put in, especially at the youngest ages.
Thank you. I just want the members of the committee to know that I'm recognizing you according to the way you appear in the queue. And Senator Sasslaw, I know you want to speak, so I need you to push your button. The next person I see is Senator Hashmi. Senator Locke, was that the end of your question?
No, but I can wait.
No, that's okay. No, let's let Senator Locke finish. Well, Senator Sasslaw was in my ear. I got a little bit distracted. So if you want to go on and continue, please go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Senator Sasslaw was in your ear?
Yes, he was. As he is often.
He's been in a lot of places, but never anybody.
Senator Hashmi, and then we're going to come back to Senator Locke.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Madam Secretary, for joining us today. I have a couple of questions, if you will indulge me, but you just referenced parents that have been speaking to these issues. I want to clarify that parents are not a homogeneous group. There are a wide array of parents, and frankly, I've been hearing quite the opposite from the parents that I speak to, the parents in my communities who have expressed great concern about the ways in which the administration is planning to address issues that are important to develop the critical thinking skills of our learners and the opportunities that they have to engage with challenging ideas, which is, in fact, the purpose of education, is to challenge us and to make sure that we are made uncomfortable so that we can become a better society. And so I would encourage you and the governor to really seek out other parents who are also quite concerned about the direction of education that has been mapped out by this administration. But my question is, a new Washington Post report just last night found that the majority of public schools in Virginia have opted to actually disobey the governor's mask order. And Governor Youngkin has, in fact, repeatedly said that he will cut funding to those districts that don't comply with that executive order. So how do you plan to cut the funding in those districts? Are you planning to roll them out district by district or all at once? And what should our Virginians in those districts now expect from you and Governor Youngkin because of this? Basically, it has been a threat to cut funding to these particular districts.
Madam Chairwoman, Senator, I will have to get back to you. I've not had that conversation and do not have a plan. I'm not aware of it, so I'm not at liberty to talk about it. But to your earlier point, I'm in complete agreement with you. I'm a product of liberal arts. My two daughters are liberal arts majors, and education is all about learning how to think, not what to think. And that's really at the heart of this, and I couldn't agree more with what the parents are saying. I'm one of those parents too. I want my children to struggle. I want them to be uncomfortable. I want them to be able to listen to ideas that they don't agree with and understand how to see things from multiple views. And that's what we're all about. And I think, polling has showed that the vast majority of the country is in the same place on this conversation about critical race theory. 80% of people who've been surveyed on this agree in the middle that they want sanity around this. They want to make sure that our children, all those things that you just said, that's what they want. They want situations where children are exposed to ideas. They're learning how to think. They're learning how to be critical thinkers. They're learning empathy, right? To how to also understand where someone is coming from. Those aren't the things at all that we're talking about. We're talking about inappropriate things like privilege walks, privilege bingo, and putting children into situations where they're playing as the victim and a supremacist. Those are completely inappropriate ideas. And when we talk to people, 80% of the country agrees that those ideas and those approaches should be nowhere in our education system. So I think that there is a way to find agreement that most people want to have a situation where and have an education system where we are teaching our children how to think and to be critical thinkers. I know that's what I want for my two girls. And I know that that's what most parents, as you're hearing, want for their children as well.
Madam Chair.
Senator Hashman.
Just a quick follow-up and just a comment, a brief comment. I respectfully disagree with you that the polling shows that most parents are adamant against critical race theory. Until 2 years ago, I never heard the words critical race theory being expressed in the public forum. I teach critical race theory through a literary lens in literature classes. I have yet to meet one parent who's been able to define for me what exactly critical race theory is, who the theorists that they disagree with are. They can't even name one theorist in this particular academic field. Thank you, Madam Chair.
It appears that most members of the committee.
I'm still waiting.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, let me just say right now for the audience, just so you won't think that I'm skipping over people. I recognize you the way you put your name in the queue. I'm not going to skip over anybody. So no matter how much you raise your finger at me, I'm only going to recognize you if I see you in the queue. And it doesn't matter which finger. Just, all right, if you didn't push your button, you will not be heard. Next person in line is Senator Suderline. Yes, but you're last.
Well, Senator Peake, the chair's made it very clear she wants to hear from me now. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Secretary Gadara, for being here today. I'm a product of liberal arts college. I like liberal arts education. I think challenging education is wonderful. I think that it would be great if more of our Virginia universities had challenging viewpoints and not so much consensus viewpoints in their faculties over and over again, where we can predict where almost every member of the faculty voted. But I don't wish that our education in third grade and fourth grade makes our students feel uncomfortable. And I don't think that's what the General Assembly wants or what Virginians want. That's not where we're going. And I follow Virginia news pretty frequently. I have yet to hear Governor Youngkin tell me in any of my meetings with him, or read in the Richmond Times-Dispatch, or read in the Roanoke Times, or read in the Washington Post, any place he's talked about defunding education. So I look forward to people telling me where I need to send my $10 monthly subscription to get this news, because I'm not seeing it anywhere. And I wish if the governor planned to do that, I wish he'd loop me in, because I hadn't heard that in any of my meetings either. But my question today is about math. I'd like to know the vision of the administration in making sure that our students aren't falling behind on math, making sure that Virginia students aren't just able to compete with North Carolina, which is very important to me as someone that borders North Carolina, but how we compete internationally and what we're going to do from a K through university level on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chairwoman,
Secretary
Senator.
Gadara.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Senator. So we are going to have high expectations on math. We are going to make sure that there is access to accelerated math work for every child. We are going to make sure that we're using data to identify kids who can be working above grade level. But first, we're going to start with having excellent data that ensures that all students are working at grade level, and that we continue to make it possible to open doors to more and more advanced work. And we're also going to work with our universities and our colleges to ensure that we're opening doors for dual enrollment and doing college level work if students are ready. And that's our goal, right? This is what other nations are doing, what other states are doing. They're having expedited pathways for math so that students can go at their own pace and go, and that there are no limits on what students can do. There are some concerns about the math pathways. You know, the executive order on last Saturday, we have put a halt on the math pathways initiative because of concerns that it was making sure that there was a one-size-fits-all for all students, and that doesn't work for anybody. We need to make sure that we are meeting students where they are, and if that means getting them up to grade level because we've failed them so far at getting them there, or if it means meeting them where they are, and if they can be doing calculus in 7th grade, we are going to make sure that they are able to do calculus in 7th grade. So again, we're going to personalize learning for every child in this Commonwealth, and we're going to do it by using data in a way to, one, identify where students are, two, to ensure that we are training our teachers and getting teachers in the curriculum that is going to meet those students, and three, that we're going to use research and data and evidence to ensure that we are using programs, curriculum, books that have proven to help students learn and achieve at the highest levels possible.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Secretary Gadara.
You're welcome, Senator Suderline. Next in queue, Senator Newman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Secretary Gadara. A couple of things to kind of go with you. One, I think the committee might benefit from your explanation of some of your work with the National Governors Association, which I think was extraordinary, and some of your work to make sure that children had a pathway to where they watched what worked and what didn't work. You call it longitudinal, other calls it other things. But maybe you can just share with us some of that work, because rarely do I and the Washington Post agree on much, but I think we agree on you, and that is that at least the editorial page seems to think some of your past work has been helpful. Could you help us with some of that?
Thank you. Madam Chairwoman?
Secretary Gadara.
Thank you, and thank you, Senator Newman. So I am actually really excited. Tomorrow I have the opportunity to go with the governor up to the National Governors Association meeting. And as you mentioned, that was my first career when I came back from Japan, is I was in the education unit, the Center for Best Practices in Education for the National Governors Association. And so it feels like a fun moment in my personal life to go back 35 years later and get a chance to attend with a phenomenal governor and to be working on a different side of the table. So it's an exciting weekend for that. That job at NGA changed my life. I had an opportunity to work with governors. I was smitten with state policy and truly understanding the critical importance of state policymakers like you all to change kids' lives, right? The power of education sits in this room, it sits in the room with teachers, but state policy matters. And the work we were doing at NGA was really about changing the conversation around high expectations. Before that point, there were examples here and there of serving students, but there wasn't this focus on how do we ensure that we are setting high expectations and setting standards for every single student that are aligned with the needs for success in life. The whole concept of career and college ready began in that work at the National Governors Association. And there was this triangle that we wrote all the time of you needed to talk about standards, assessment, and accountability. And why those three things mattered then, and they matter so much now, is that if we don't have high expectations and we don't know where we want our students to be, we will never get there. Assessments, if we don't measure, if we don't assess where students are, and we don't constantly provide that information in an actual way to people, we never will be able to change anything, because we all know you cannot change anything that you don't understand and you're not measuring constantly. And third of all, accountability. We know that these systems, the status quo is so strong, that power just to stay in place is so strong. And what we need to do is to make sure we are holding adults in the system and all of us, the systems, accountable for ensuring that we are serving every single child. So that work really launched my entire career. But at the midpoint in that, about 20 years ago, I also realized we weren't getting the results we wanted just by having that framework of having standards, assessment, and accountability. And it's because we were doing a lousy job of getting people that information throughout the system, that what they needed, and we call quality information, the right data at the right time in the right format to the right people. And where we are especially failing is getting actionable information into the hands of students themselves, right? So they have their own agency to understand where they are and where they need to go, into the hands of parents so that they understand what's happening with their children and what they need to do as a partner in education. And teachers. Teachers are so hungry for this information, and we consistently fail getting our educators what they need, when they need it, how they need it, so they can do the job that only they can do. And also policymakers didn't have the information. So that was really the work I did when we launched the Data Quality Campaign, was to change that conversation and to ensure that we prioritize the role of information in getting results.
Madam Chair, just one follow-up question.
Yes.
And I know I'm asking education questions, but that's kind of where we are, right? And right now, the learning loss situation in Virginia is dramatic. I mean, with COVID, with masking, with the whole thing, the numbers are really, really bad, and we have got to recover. And so I know that you've only been kind of on the job for a few weeks, but and I don't know that I'm asking you for a comprehensive answer between you and the superintendent and the board and this committee, but it's clearly got to be our job one to make sure that we recover from the learning loss, because math, history, science, and English right now is in trouble, and the numbers are starting to turn back up, but we've got to have a very clear path on how to get from where we are to where we need to be.
Madam Chairwoman, if that was a question, sorry. So yes, I mean, we're in a crisis, and Superintendent Balo, this is what we are focusing on. There is such a crisis. Our children it's a triage situation, right? There is so much learning loss. The numbers continue to be horrific. And how we start focusing on this and we start immediately dealing with this is identifying where the problems are. Who are the children that are hurting the most? Where has that loss happened the most? And how do we make sure that we put into place programs, tutors, efforts, time, energy, to make sure that we are targeting our resources to those children who need it the most. And you all have seen the research too, right? The kids that were furthest behind are further behind. The kids that were doing well are even doing better after COVID. It turns out they got lots of private tutoring on their own. So the point is, we have to use our data to identify where each of our children are, and this is why quality assessment matters. This is why public reporting matters. This is why we need to make sure that we are using information to guide all of our decisions and guiding where we put our resources to ensure that those that are most behind right now as a result of the pandemic are the ones that are getting our attention. And we can do this. There are examples across the country where they are making incredible leaps and bounds by using very specific materials, tutoring to do this, and we will be making this a day one priority with the superintendent. And thank you for raising that.
Senator Newman? Okay. Next in queue is Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm just going to make 3 very brief points, and you don't need to agree or even comment, but since I have your attention. One is I agree with my colleague, Senator Hashmi, we should not be afraid to teach uncomfortable subjects. The flip side of that is that means uncomfortable for everybody, and it's not just certain classes of people that should be targeted to be uncomfortable. We should all be uncomfortable. I will say, for example, there's an article in Atlantic Magazine on school masking. It would make some folks up here uncomfortable if they read it, and they're going to read it. So I'll leave it at that. Number 2, executive orders. I don't like executive orders, and I've been an equal opportunity critic of executive orders. I would ask that your administration engage with us and even engage with school boards rather than trying to do things by executive fiat. I'm not asking you to comment. I'm just telling you that's my position. Number 3, I was not happy with this idea about having a tip line. And let me tell you something. And again, I apologize. I don't mean to have a lecturing tone because I'm just one parent. If there's a problem in a school district or a school division, the tip line should be the school board member or the principal.
That's right.
That's who they should be contacting. And I have no problem whatsoever if there's a problem in my school, calling my school board member who lives down the street, and I live in a small jurisdiction. But that should be the tip line. And again, I'm not trying to browbeat you. I have great respect for you, anyone who does this, and I want to work with you. But I would just say, please engage with us. And other than that, I wish you the best, and I thank you as a parent of multiple children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next in queue, Senator Barker.
Hi. Good morning and welcome, and good to see you here today and engage in discussion with us on things. We've been working, very hard in Virginia, actually over a long period of time in terms of trying to address education issues and trying to make sure that we are helping our students be able to do what they can do and to get them to the point where they can be productive adults in our communities, hopefully. Our K through 12 system has been ranked number 4 in the country. Our public higher education has been ranked number 1 or number 2 each of the last 5 years in terms of the public higher education system. My kids went through public schools here in Virginia. My daughter taught at a high school in Rockbridge County in the Lexington area, and also then went to New York City and taught at a high school in the South Bronx, where they took a relatively low income population that was in that school and took it from a high school graduation rate of 35% to 75% in 5 years. And these are the types of things that we need to make sure that we're doing wherever we can in Virginia. We actually have had a lot of the school divisions and individual schools that had been, rated not as productive and had lower test scores and everything. And a lot of those actually over the last, 5 to 10 years have improved dramatically. So I think we've been doing a lot of things good. There are some issues, however, I think that provide some potential for addressing them and having the state help many of the local school divisions and meet these challenges and help be able to do everything they want to do to be able to help their students. One of the things that we've had is our teacher pay has been ranked either 49th or 50th the last couple of years in terms of the salaries of teachers in Virginia compared to other professionals of similar responsibility and academic background, those types of things. It's amazing that we have a number 4 school system when we're number 50 in pay, but we need to make sure that we don't lose a lot of teachers, which we already are losing some, but it's not just a Virginia issue as a result of the stress that they've been under the last couple of years. But we need to do what things we can to help them and make sure that we retain as many of the good teachers as we can on that. Second thing I think is important is to make sure that we are providing the resources that we're supposed to provide to the local school divisions. It was about 12 or 13 years ago when, during the Great Recession, where because of revenues falling, we froze the number of support positions within K through 12 schools that we would provide the state share of their salaries and everything. It was advertised as a 1 or 2 year temporary freeze, but it's still in place today. And we did get 3 categories of support positions unfrozen last year with money from the budget. So we were able to finally start to be able to unfreeze things. But if we are asking our local localities and our local school boards and school systems to be able to address these issues, we need to give them the money that we are supposed to be giving them and that was agreed upon as part of a court settlement decades ago. So there's a lot that we can do and a lot that I think we need to do to be able to address these. The 2 other things I think that are important, one is that the previous school superintendent at the state level, at one of our sessions, we have an annual retreat where we do 2-day thing with the members of this committee and also the House Education Committee, sort of an education summit. And at one of those, he gave us information that showed very clearly that those students and those school divisions that were not performing as well in terms of the standardized tests and those types of things, that that were not doing as well. The biggest problem was that the students who were in some of those divisions, particularly lower socioeconomic status students, they started out behind when they got to kindergarten. Mm-hmm. They improved just as much as the more affluent students for the next 12 years, but they were still behind because there was never an ability to be able to help most of them be able to make the jump. So they clearly have the capacity to be able to do well. And what it seems to me is we need to continue to build on what our efforts, which have not been complete yet, to deal with pre-K so that we have every student ready by the time they get to kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And that will, in and of itself, make things dramatically different. The other thing I wanted to just hit on quickly is Senator Locke and your appearance the other day before the Higher Education Subcommittee. We have a phenomenal public higher education system in Virginia. We help a lot of students graduate. We help a lot of them get postgraduate degrees, PhDs, et cetera. Unfortunately, we train a lot of these people, and then when they get their PhDs, et cetera, we lose a lot of them because we have not been, developing the job opportunities and research and other types of things that would help us there. And I think that that's an area where we need a lot of push to be able to move in that direction. It's not going to be that difficult because we have great students and we have great schools, but what we need to do is make sure that they're ready to provide the resources to be able to help these students after they get their degrees, whether it's baccalaureate, master's, or PhDs, to move forward and to be able to stay in Virginia and to help us help us get the benefits of their work rather than us being the AAA farm team and then getting them trained and then we send them to somewhere else. So thank you, and I'd be glad to help work with you on all those issues.
Thank you. Madam Chair, would you?
I didn't hear a question in there. I think I heard mostly.
Don't you agree?
Don't you agree? And wouldn't you love to work with all of us? So.
Madam Chair, I agree with all that. Thank you so much, Senator. And I think some of you know that I know that Virginia is a place of excellence. My husband and I started our married life in Virginia because we came here so Bill could get his degree at Mason Law. So, that was why I became a Virginia the first time, was because I wanted access to that excellence. Right. And we made, we had the ability to have choice, and we made sure we moved into a great school district so that our children could go to that school district. So I know there's excellence here. That's why I'm here. And I'll just briefly respond to that. Everything you said, yes, and let's keep talking about that. The issue is that sometimes the averages and the excellence is working. We have excellence for lots of students in lots of places. We need to make sure that that excellence is accessible for everyone. Right. And that's our issue, is that we have to make sure that we keep that that excellence as our bar and bring everybody to it, and also not to rest on our laurels. We have a lot of work to do to make sure that everybody has access to that excellence. So, and I know that you all join me in that and making sure that we do that. And also to the funding point, this governor has committed to having a record budget on education, and especially around people. No organization, no quality organization can get results without investing in its people, and we're going to do that, and to make sure that we are able to attract the greatest teachers and keep them, and to ensure that they are providing what students need so that those students can have results. And early childhood, I couldn't agree more. Actually, one of the things I did at the National Governors Association was I ran a school readiness task force of governors and business leaders that wanted to do return on investment studies to show and make the economic argument that the only way that we get everybody to be prepared for life is to invest in early childhood. So this is something that I personally am passionate about, have spent 30 years thinking about, and the data is unbelievably undeniable that investing in, we cannot do this, and there's a phenomenal research study out of Chicago that shows you cannot bring a child up to grade level in kindergarten. You have to start earlier, and only then do we actually get the results we need. So I'm with you on that. My last thing I'll say is, one of the things I am concerned about as I am preparing for this job and doing a lot of reading is part of the reason we're looking like we're doing well is we've also lowered our standards and lowered our bars. And this is something that Superintendent Balo and I will be focusing on in Laser Lake, is ensuring that we have cut scores for our proficiency definitions that are in the top 10% of the nation. We have to be able to compete, as one of the senators said earlier, not only with North Carolina and with Maryland, but also with the world. And by doing that, we need to make sure that what we call proficient in Virginia means that it's proficient. And not only, we don't need to be satisfied with proficient, we need above proficiency to make sure that people want to stay here when they get their degrees. And the way we do that is by ensuring that we have a vibrant economy, of vibrant communities, and we do that by investing in our people and having high expectations. And we're going to make sure we do that. So thank you so much.
Senator Saslow?
Yeah.
Your turn.
Secretary Gadara, thank you for being here today. And certainly you came here with some excellent credentials, as was pointed out in the Washington Post editorial last Sunday. You answered a lot of what I was going to ask just a minute ago to Senator Barker. The problem that I see in this state is it sure as hell isn't critical race theory. That's a lot of crap, okay? Know that right from the get-go. It's a lot of crap. The problem that we have here in Virginia educationally is wealth generated. To give you an example, a few of us here are from Fairfax County. They're 13.7% of the state's population. They're at most years, 27 to 29% of the incoming in-state freshman class at UVA. Numbers are pretty much similar at William and Mary and Virginia Tech. Northern Virginia, as a region, a couple of years ago when I checked, was almost 60% of UVA's in-state enrollment. The problem is a wealth gap, and we send Fairfax County sends almost more kids to the Ivy League than the rest of the state combined. The problem is money. Make no mistake about it, and you were absolutely correct in pointing out it doesn't start at kindergarten. I know from personal experience with our grandchildren who are 5 and 7 now, they started in nursery school at age 2. It makes one heck of a difference, okay? And that difference stays with them all the way through the educational system, both in K through 12 and ultimately higher education. We need to get more resources particularly to the rural areas, but also to a lot of the urban areas that don't have the money that you see in some regions of the state. And, I've said this before, we can't give away a ton of taxes and think we're going to accomplish this. It's not going to happen. We need to spend some money in some of these areas to bring these kids that live in center cities, kids that live in rural areas up to speed. To me, like I said, I see that as, it should be, and you mentioned this, a top goal of yours. And I can assure you, if that's the direction you want to take, you're going to get a lot of help from all of us.
Madam Chairman, thank you, Senator.
Madam Chair?
A question in there would be, don't you agree?
What do you think?
Madam Chair, Senator, so I'll just give an example. I'm leaving here, and I'm sorry I won't be able to stay to hear the other folks, because we are going up and sponsoring an event with the governor with about 25 of our universities and colleges and community colleges gathering to launch a design challenge around innovation lab schools. And the priority is going to be placed on ensuring that those schools serve students in Title I schools, students that are not on grade level, students in areas that we have not served. And that's going to be harnessing state funds to support that. So that is just one tangible example of how we are not only in agreement, but we are absolutely taking actions to ensure that we are prioritizing those who most need the support and the attention and the focus, but also the money to be able to invest in them. So I just want to say completely agree and look forward to working with you on that.
Next in queue, Senator Peake.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair, and welcome, Madam Secretary. Nice to hear from you. I appreciate and agree with you in what you have talked about today and focusing on standards and applying these standards to everyone and bringing all of our students up to meet standards and not lowering standards, but actually increasing standards, focusing on math and making sure every child in the Commonwealth receives a fair education and a good, great education. But Madam Secretary, would you agree that no matter how many times a falsehood is repeated, it does not make it true?
Yes, sir.
You agree with that?
Yes, sir. Madam Chair.
And so you heard several different speakers this morning say that critical race theory does not exist and is not in Virginia. Have you heard that today?
Yes, sir.
Did you hear that? Did you pay attention to the Virginia campaign?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Did you hear Terry McAuliffe say that there is no such thing as critical race theory in Virginia?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Have you seen the 2015 screenshot from the Department of Education under then Governor Terry McAuliffe that talks about embrace critical race theory, engage in race conscious teaching and learning, and then has culturally responsive alternatives continued, incorporate critical race theory lens, critical race theory. Have you seen that from his Department of Education?
I have not, sir.
Oh, well, I will share that with you. So when somebody repeats a falsehood to you in a meeting, that you can respond to that falsehood immediately. That when Terry McAuliffe and MSNBC and certain Democrats in the General Assembly say that critical race theory does not exist in Virginia, you can look at 2015, then Governor McAuliffe's Department of Education screenshot and cite that to them. And of course, Governor Northam, did you hear Governor Northam say during this campaign that there is no such thing as critical race theory in Virginia?
No, sir.
You did not hear him. Well, he did. And I would point to you a memo from his secretary, James Lane, dated February 22nd, 2019, a memo to division superintendents. Superintendent of Public Instruction James Lane sent a memo to Virginia Public Schools endorsing foundations of critical race theory in education, calling it an important analytical tool that can further spur development in education. And I have a copy of that memo from James Lane. So the next time that you're in a meeting and someone says there is no such thing as critical race theory in Virginia education, I would like for you to cite to them 2015 Terry McAuliffe's Department of Education and 2015 and 2019 Governor Northam's division superintendent's memo talking about critical race theory in education in Virginia. So please do not let those comments go unresponded to. Would you agree with me that it is important to answer falsehoods with facts?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Where do they teach you? In our Virginia public schools.
No, not gonna tolerate this. Next in queue, Senator Edwards.
Madam Secretary, one of the two things, I've been pushing for over 20 years to have universal preschool in Virginia. It's extremely important. I'm glad to hear you say how important that is. But the other thing, we haven't talked about it, but following up on what Senator Sasslaw says, the wealth gap. There's a huge wealth gap, and it shows up with school construction. There's something like, I think I read $25 billion in school construction needs in Virginia, and we're not really touching it. And if your administration could look at how we're going to deal with the rural areas, they cannot raise the local taxes like Northern Virginia can pay for the schools because they have the money. In rural areas, they don't have the money and they can't afford to do it. And we need to do something about figuring out how to deal with the school construction needs. I think half the schools I read are 50 years older, and others are crumbling. And some localities can deal with it, but many of them simply cannot, and they need additional money from the Commonwealth to deal with the school construction needs.
Yes, sir.
Will you do that?
Yeah.
Thank
So,
you.
Madam Chair. Yes, sir. And the governor has stated often, it's part of our plan to invest in our infrastructure and our building infrastructure across the state. We know how important a safe, healthy, and modern, up-to-date working space is for all of us, especially for our teachers and for our students especially. So we hear you, and we look forward to working with you on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Hashmi?
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I hope you'll just indulge me for a minute. And Secretary, this is not a question for you, but I just wanted to respond to Senator Peake's comments. And I appreciate the passion that he brings to the issue. And I just want to reiterate to those comments that critical race theory is simply not being taught in our schools. There is no curricula that we can point to that identifies CRT in any capacity. There's no assessments that are embedded in our K-12 education system around CRT. Those memos that you cited refer to really what is an academic theory. It's an academic theory. It's one of many academic theories. We have socioeconomic theories that we use to interpret and identify what's happening in the world around us. And so critical race theory is an academic theory. It's a lens by which we have the opportunity to look at our social, historical constructs and be able to interpret them in one way. And I'll just use it as an example. Virginia's been going through a serious reevaluation or reinterpretation of its own public history. So for instance, if you go to Monticello now, 20 years ago when I visited Monticello, it was a focus on Thomas Jefferson and on the history of his legacy and so forth. Through the lens of critical race theory, we might say, we now have a historical interpretation of Monticello that gives voice, gives presence to the slaves, to the enslaved peoples who also lived on that plantation. That is the role of this academic lens. It's the reinterpretation, it's giving voice and visibility to communities, especially communities of color, who have been previously unseen and unheard in our society. So, Madam Chair, thank you for indulging me in that comment.
Of course, Senator Hashmi. I have Senator Locke. You're going to have the last word because I promised that I would come back to you because I don't think you completed your question. So, Senator Locke, you will have the last word. And then the Secretary Gradera has a plane to catch. Or a bus, or
just
train.
a walk up the
Oh, you're
hill.
just going to walk, okay.
No.
She's gonna fly.
She's going to fly when she's walking.
I believe I was done, Madam Chair, because Senator Peterson raised the question that I had with regard to the tip line. which I think is basically kind of unconscionable because it puts our teachers in a really, really bad position, as it does parents and students, because I just think that that's wrong. And Senator Hashmi addressed the issue that I was going to raise with regard to critical race theory, which is essentially a law school issue. And again, just because you quote something from a website doesn't make it factual either. It makes it an alternative fact. So that's not a question. That was just a statement. And this Democrat continues to say that critical race theory is not taught in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is not a curriculum issue. But thank you so much for coming, and I look forward to working with you both on the higher education issues and as well as K through 12 issues. And I appreciate your coming here this morning.
Thank you.
Secretary Gradere, I'm sorry that we took so much of your time,
No.
but we really appreciate you coming to the committee this morning so that the committee members can all learn who you are and prepare ourselves to work with you. And I can commit to you that I will look forward to working with you as well.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members, thank you very, very much. I look forward to working with each and every one of you on this most important work. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we want to hear from the Secretary of Health and Human Resources, and that is Secretary John Little. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you, and I appreciate also the warm welcome that many of you offered me. It's been quite a whirlwind 2 weeks, and if you'll excuse me, I am just finishing my quarantine, like many of you have been through COVID. So I've been engaged for the past 30 years in healthcare policy and operations, both in the public and private sectors. When I worked in this office back in 1993, we had 15 agencies, 17,000 employees, 15 facilities, and a budget of about $7.5 billion. And some of you were even here working on the issues back then. Today, not that much has changed on the surface. We have 12 agencies, 15,000 employees, 12 facilities, and a budget of $23.4 billion. That part has certainly changed. Obviously, the pandemic and our vaccine testing and treatment responses are foremost in most people's minds. But the reality is that many, many more people rely on the Commonwealth for medical care, foster care, mental health, and substance use programs. I don't need to tell you that we're in the midst of a healthcare workforce crisis, especially in behavioral health, that will continue to grow at a time when we need these individuals more than ever. Our infant mortality rate is unacceptable. We have an opioid epidemic that continues to plague our communities, and the demand for mental health services continues to grow. You all have worked for many years to apply both Band-Aids and structural changes to our mental health system, but we need to take this work to the next level. Our communities, schools, and families are struggling, and more often than not, law enforcement is the answer when it shouldn't be. I didn't imagine that I'd be back in state government. My wife certainly did not. I very much like the innovative work that we were doing in the private sector that affected Medicaid and other populations. I came back to government because I believe that this governor will work with you and our local partners to rethink how we address the mental health care continuum. I'm not naive or arrogant enough to believe that he or I can just put forth a new idea and that will solve it. But I think you will all agree that now has to be the time that we get it right. It's too important to our neighbors, coworkers, and children. The governor told me that many people, parents, doctors, sheriffs, other law enforcement, individuals struggling with anxiety, depression, or addiction, came up to him during the campaign and asked him for help. He listened to each of their stories and he heard the specifics of it, but what he also heard was a plea for hope. We have a safety net for a reason. Our responsibility is to ensure that it is effective, efficient, and accountable, and that people shouldn't have to hope for access. I look forward to working with you to address these issues. Thanks again for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions or take your feedback.
Are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman.
I see Senator Peake. You were in the queue here. Okay. Does any of the committee members have any questions? Okay, Senator Newman.
Just briefly, Secretary Littell, thank you for coming. First off, thank you for coming back to state government. Honestly, I know you've had an incredible career since you left us, and you didn't have to come back, and I'm very grateful that you did. I do think that working with Senator Barker and Senator Howell and Senator Hanger, there's just a lot of work to be done, especially upstairs. This committee, clearly, the policy matters really matter, but there's a lot of work to do upstairs as it relates to how we work our way through some of the DMAS issues. And it really relates to some of the governance. You know, how do we make sure that those agencies really are run as efficiently as possible? Because that really is kind of the least among us is money, right? And so the process of efficiency really matters. And I know that George and Janet and others really have more insight into that. But I really look forward to working with you here, but certainly upstairs in HHR, where there's really just seems to be a great opportunity to kind of look at governance and how we can be even more efficient with the people's money up there. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
I appreciate that, and I think you know that the governor has really kind of, even before he took office, really been thinking about how we transform a lot of the services that we provide. Not so much necessarily to save money, but to really make sure that we provide the services that are most efficient and most effective. I think when you look across the board, certainly in this secretariat, Medicaid managed care is the largest thing that we do. We obviously serve a lot of people, 1.6 million individuals. There are lots of opportunities where we can improve those programs, and we have good partners, but I think we can re-examine that. When we think about the way that we manage behavioral health and the way that we manage Medicaid and the way that those things interact with education and public safety, there are lots and lots of opportunities, I think, for us to collaborate and look for improvements. Again, not so much from a process perspective or a savings perspective, but for the individual. Right? If we have a student who's receiving services from a school-based service, from a Medicaid program, or from an outside program, that's really not fair to that student to really, we want to wrap around that and do it right. So appreciate that perspective.
Okay. Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very briefly, I want to talk a little bit about Medicaid and Medicaid delivery. I live in a part of the state with a very high population of non-English speakers who are also served by Medicaid, and oftentimes their point of contact is with small businesses, personal care providers that are Korean-speaking, Vietnamese-speaking, Hispanic-speaking, you name it. And one of my concerns about having the MCOs run our program is that oftentimes they will basically sort of get rid of some of these smaller businesses because they end up holding the contract, so to speak, for the service. And it can be very confusing for the clients. I know on the Minority Business Commission, which I also serve on, I've asked us to take a look at this. And to be blunt, I've had clients that have been involved, and so I've seen this happen firsthand. But I would simply commend that to you, that in turning over the keys to the MCOs, that we look out for those smaller populations that, again, are not accessible except through these uniquely positioned businesses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Suderline, you're showing in here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It comes to a condition to say Madam Chair and Madam President. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for coming here today. With your predecessor in this role, I expressed lots of concerns about what was happening in Virginia nursing homes, and that was in 2019. And then 2020 happened and exposed a lot of problems. And you're going to hear a lot during this General Assembly about different ideas that we have. I don't know if the House and Senate, or if even one chamber, will be able to come to a consensus position. But there's few issues that I hear more about from actual constituents, but I hear less about in the larger political fare and all the political commentary than the conditions in our nursing homes across Virginia and concerns people have about our aging population not getting the care that they need, and it's a Commonwealth not investigating properly. So that's something I look forward to having conversations with you about, and I know that's something that my colleague from Roanoke cares a lot about, and I presume almost everyone on here cares about. But that's something that I hope this administration will do better than previous administrations, is providing that scrutiny. I have no question. Thank you.
Well, if I can just respond, I think you all know quite well all the tools that we have to protect individuals in nursing homes or assisted living facilities. And I think, all those things we should be looking at. But I do think taking a step back, it's really thinking about our aging policies and how we look at long-term care in general and think about the services and supports that we can provide there. So I think that's part and parcel of all the things that we talk about when we're talking about efficiency and effectiveness. We're also talking about that, but we're also talking about health and safety and protective services as well. So look forward to having those conversations with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Senator Barker.
Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. As we're sort of getting started in a significant way in terms of moving through this agenda, as well as what Senator Newman referred to, in terms of the budget issues, which are a real challenge and a real opportunity that we have this year. And I think, we'd be happy to work with you on all those issues. Senator Suderline picked one of the issues that there are a lot of things that we do well, but not everything. And certainly some of the issues that we've been wrestling with in terms of long-term care, as well as a lot of the mental health issues. We've made some significant progress, which obviously, you're very familiar with that,
Right.
Over the last 8 years, but we still have a long ways to go to have the system functioning as well as it needs to. On the long-term care, we did have the Joint Commission on Healthcare did a lot of work on that this past year. Senator Kiggins and Delegate Watts had been pushing in terms of staffing levels within nursing homes and
Yep.
having a standard there. We do have legislation in to address that issue in this session, and I'm carrying the bill in the Senate on that, and also have endorsed value-based purchasing there to be able to make sure that we are getting money to the facilities, because we've been paying less than what it actually costs to provide the
Correct.
care for long-term care in the nursing homes. So that value-based purchasing, some of that is clearly tied directly to the staff that they have. And unfortunately, we're coming forward with things, and I think we will be able to get some long-term benefit. But in the short term, we have a major issue, because going into the pandemic, we had 80,000 people employed in Virginia in direct care positions in residential facilities, nursing homes, assisted living, various psychiatric facilities, those types of things. We've lost 10,000 of those. That is a huge loss, and that's part of what's been driving some of the issues that Senator Suderline's been dealing with, because they've lost a lot of the staff there, and it's been very difficult to hire additional staff people in many of those positions. We need to address those issues, and the Joint Commission on Healthcare will be starting to look at assisted living issues as well. Because we don't really, at a state level, don't really get involved in that much. We don't fund it. We don't do the types of things that in many other states have provided support there as well. So we look forward to working with you on that, and hope that will be one of the types of things that you can focus on during the next, at least the next year or two, as we're addressing some of these issues. So thank you.
Yes, sir. May I respond quickly? Sure. I totally agree, and I think, when we talk about workforce, we need to recognize that is, the people that clean the buildings to the people that provide the care. We were, the governor and I were in Roanoke last week at Carillion, and, just meeting with the people that clean the emergency room, right? The emergency room is not sanitized. There's no work that can be done there. And across the board, every single part of that system is down significantly, either short-term or long-term. And we see that in every part of the healthcare system. whether you're talking about psychiatrists or nurse practitioners or whatever. So I think we have an opportunity to sort of look at this in a more holistic way, right? You all gave us the tool of the healthcare workforce authority. I think we need to really think about how we do that, how we link up the Department of Health Professions, how we work with the Department of Commerce and Trade and Labor, and think about how we sort of come at this maybe in a different way. But it really does need to be, we have a lot of stuff that we think are crises right now,
Right.
but I think underlying virtually everything we talk about is this workforce issue.
Any further questions? Thank you so
Thank you very
for
much.
being
Forward to
here.
working with you.
Secretary, appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move into the calendar, and we'll start with public education, with Subcommittee Chair Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Public Education Subcommittee met on, I believe it was last Thursday, so I apologize for that. Yes, we met last Thursday, and there are 4 bills that are actually come from me, and we will begin with that first one. The first one is SB 156. And this is to increase state funding to support our English learners. We have a growing population of students in our K-12 system who need additional support for English learning skills. And this would help with the ratio levels, bringing in more teachers to assist in our EL learning population, and thereby helping our schools address the concerns. We know from research, of course, that the students who are able to gain the greatest skills in English language learning at a faster rate are then able to acclimate into their courses and make a solid academic progress. And this is such a critical area of need and support. And we would like to see this increased funding. It was recommended for reporting out of committee on a vote of 4-1. And there is a fiscal impact, of course, and it will be going
Have to go
to
to Finance.
Senate Finance. So I move that it be recommended and referred to Finance.
Okay, there's a motion, and a second to report and refer to Senate Finance and Appropriations. All those in favor, vote aye. Those opposed, nay.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Senator Donovan's proxy? Ayes 8, noes 5.
All right, the bill is reported and referred to Senate Finance and Appropriations. The next would be SB 157, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, the next bill is SB 157, and this is to bring our funding for teacher pay up to SOQ standards. The governor has introduced a 5% annual pay increase for these SOQ positions, and this bill supports that funding, and so we recommended reporting with a re-refer to Finance on a vote of 4-1, and I so move.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Senator Newman.
Mr. Chairman, I think everyone in this room lauds what the Senator is trying to do, but this is so aspirational and really has nothing to do with this bill, because ultimately these decisions will be made upstairs. And I mean, if the bill said just that, we're going to seek to endeavor, but this bill gives into the Code of Virginia this idea that we're actually going to do this when we have no idea whether we're going to do it. So I think it's great aspirationally. Also, it has a delayed effective date, so the budget we have in front of us right now is not included. And so my concern isn't about the gentlelady's desire to to do this. It's that we're actually going to start putting future budget aspirations into the code. And to me, that is just not the right way to do it. I hope we all agree we will seek to endeavor to do it, but it's the way we're doing it that is of struggle to me.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Peterson.
My question is, this basically, we're writing a check that extends through year 27, 28. But of course, any budget bill is itself a general law, which would supersede this. So I mean, what effect, if any, does this have on a future assembly? And I think the answer is nothing. Does anyone have a response to that?
Well, that's why it has to go to Senate Finance. If I remember, there was a bill initially that only required, for the 5% pay raise, a half match. This obviously requires a full. And I know in the case of Fairfax County, they were talking hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to do this. So this bill definitely would have to be looked at very carefully if it's reported out to Senate Finance and Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, it does require state funding, but it is pursuant to
requires a lot of local funding as well.
Well, it is also then subject to a local matching requirement in accordance with the local school board's ability to pay. And so it is adjusted on that basis, and it is available to have any re-benchmarking as necessary, and so it would have that opportunity.
All right, is there a motion?
I believe I made the motion based on the subcommittee's recommendation that we recommend reporting and re-refer to finance.
Is there a second? All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor of reporting Senate Bill 157 and referring to finance, vote aye.
Close the vote.
We're on Ashby's bill.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Just this is a second.
Madam Chair?
That's you.
Ayes 8, noes 5, abstentions 1.
Thank you. Clerk, close roll. Bill passed. Report and refer. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
That's yours. So it's me.
Yes. Ayes 8, noes 5, abstentions 1.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Hatchley, you still on your report?
Yes, Madam Chair. The next bill is SB 239, and this is coming to us from a variety of different stakeholders, and we are asking that Virginia establish a STEM Education Advisory Board, and that we are going to be adding science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and computing to the advisory board, and that the Education Advisory Board develop and submit to the Board of Education a rubric that is going to be used by our Board of Education to define the factors that permit a school to be identified as a STEM school, and to make recommendations for the board to create a measurement of quality for STEM programming in general education. This is really seeking to address the critical need that we have to make sure that we are targeting the necessary skills and the opportunities for our students to engage in a wide variety of STEM fields, and also make sure that we are integrating the critical literacies around computer science that are tremendously needed and are a growing field. And the committee recommended reporting on a vote of 5-0. I recommend reporting with a re-refer to finance, and I so move.
It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 239 be reported and re-referred to Senate Finance. All in favor of that motion, please vote electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill is reported and will be referred to Senate Finance. Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next bill is SB 261, and it is similarly concerned with our STEM education areas. And this particular bill asks that along with the Advisory Board and Department of Education, that we perform a comprehensive review of the Bureau of Labor Statistics categories within the standard occupational classification system and assess the deficit areas that don't capture our existing STEM+C workforce profile so that we can better align our K-12 and our higher ed priorities so that we are addressing the critical needs to ensure that our students have the opportunity to be competitive in the emerging fields and careers that they are going to be moving into. The subcommittee recommended reporting with a re-refer to finance on a vote of 5-0, and I so move.
It's been moved and probably second that the bill be reported and re-referred to Senate Finance. Did I get a second? Second. All in favor of that motion, please respond electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill is reported and will be re-referred to Senate Finance. Senator Hashmi.
Madam Chair, the next bill is SB 275, patroned by Senator D-Step. This bill had a quite extensive public testimony period. We heard from a variety of individuals who shared concerns about the need to identify and examine materials that are available to students in our public school libraries. We also heard from our school librarians as well as individuals representing the American Library Association. And there was quite a bit of debate around it. The issue that this bill is seeking to address is to include parental involvement and have mandatory opportunity for parents to review every printed and audiovisual material that is available to students in school. The bill also linked a section of the code that is concerning grooming materials. Grooming materials in the code are identified as those sexually explicit materials that are used to engage minors and children with the intentionality of engaging in sexual relationships with children. The problem with this particular legislation, proposed legislation, is that it really links the work of our school librarians with the intentionality of pedophiles. And so that was seen as a problem by many of our speakers, and many speakers pointed out that all of our school systems, districts, have the opportunity for parental engagement. There are usually committees that are part of this process of evaluating library materials. And so on a vote of 3-2, this bill was recommended to be passed by indefinitely, and I so move.
It's been moved.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think Senator D-Step wished to be heard on this bill, and he should be here momentarily.
Yes, he was just in committee behind me having a bill heard. I think he may be a minute. So we can pass by momentarily. Senator Hashmi.
Thank you. As we wait for the patron to come, the next bill is SB 285, patroned by Senator Eben, and this is a bill that focused on issues that have occurred in recent years in our interscholastic athletic competitions in which racial epithets, insensitive comments have been directed at some of our young athletes. And we again heard public testimony. We heard principally from several parents of young athletes whose children had been verbally assaulted by opposing teams with racially insensitive comments and bullying. And so there is a substitute that's now in front of the committee that came out of the conversation of the committee. And I move that we accept the substitute.
It's been moved and probably second that the substitute be accepted. Agreed to. All in favor say aye.
The substitute that's in front of you removes the term hate speech. That was a concern raised by committee members, and instead changes it to the terminology of and this is on line 16, involving bullying or the use of ethnically or racially insensitive expressions during athletic competitions. The substitute also removes reference to academic competitions, which in which instances we typically don't see any instances of ethnically or racially insensitive bullying or insensitive language being used. And so it is simplifying much of those concerns that were raised in the committee. And then finally, again, a recommendation from committee members. There is a change in the substitute to also outline that training materials and the penalties for the violations for such rules would be developed by the organizations pursuant to the subsection.
Madam Chair.
Senator Peterson?
I don't know. I'm sorry, was there a subcommittee recommendation? I apologize if I was broken.
Yes, the subcommittee recommendation was that this bill be recommended for reporting on a vote of 5-0, and I so move.
Okay, Madam Chair, let me, if I might speak to this.
Senator Peterson?
You know, I don't know a lot about much, but I know a little bit about high school sports. And one of the things I've been consistent about is having this body to try and go in and legislate high school sports when we have an organization called BHSL that does that. I'll give you an example. I played high school football, as does my son. And I will never forget the first time I lined up at the line of scrimmage. I was 165 pounds playing offensive guard in a Division VI level game. So I was about half the size of the defensive tackle. And he looked across the line of scrimmage and he said to me, first snap, "I'm going to kill you, white boy." That's what he said. And you know what? I was too scared to even respond. And actually what I found was he hit me pretty hard. He was a very good player. I actually remember his name, and I'm not going to embarrass him. But he was a very good player, and I responded the best I could. And I just think that in life, after the match, we shook hands, and it was fine. I feel like if we go in and try and legislate these things, particularly for people that frankly do not have a background in high school sports, and I'll say this, Adam, you're my friend, but I think you're out of your lane on this.
This bill was developed in conjunction with VHSL and with people in background in high school sports.
Then they can do their own rules. They don't need to put it in the code. And I just feel like this is less about what's in the best interest. I just feel like we're going to try and legislate everything. And, you know, at some point, you got to let these organizations make their own rules, develop their own penalties. We do not need to have this in the state code, so I do not support this bill.
Senator Sotomayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd echo some of the sentiments that Senator Peterson expressed. I think that a lot of my comments today will be identical to the comments I'll make next week when a Republican friend brings a bill related to the Virginia High School League, which is, in both cases, Virginia High School League's already on this issue. It's something that we've spent a lot of time on. For those of you that don't know, I'm on the board there. And a few years ago, we had a bill brought by my friend from Franklin County, Senator Stanley, and he said, you know, we need to have robotics, and VHSL wasn't going the pace he wanted. And we said, we're working on it, we're going to get it, and we got robotics. And I think that we made the right decision that time not to intervene in that. On this issue, there are significant sanctions. Virginia High School League has not asked for this bill. I would disagree with the characterization that this is something that's been crafted with the board, and I don't think this is something that VHSL would like to have. VHSL also, in general, is not enthusiastic about mentions of appropriations dealing with anything regarding them. So I hope that it'll be the pleasure of the committee to carry the bill over. I don't think that it's necessary. I think that you're gonna, and I don't want to speak to anyone's motives, but I think in the same way you're gonna have a Republican bill next week where it's the same thing, where it's important issues that are being discussed, but that Virginia High School League is in a far better situation working on it right now than for us to interject ourselves. That's the way I feel about this one today, and that's the way I'll feel about the one next week. And I know that today it will be unpleasant for some of our Democratic friends to make that decision, and I know next week it'd be unpleasant for us to make that decision. But I think in each case, that's the right decision, and I just echo Senator Peterson's comments. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next in line, Senator Peake.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was on the subcommittee that heard this. And when you heard the parents speak, it was very moving, and I was very sympathetic to what they went through. And Senator Locke and I discussed it. I don't like hate speech, which was in the original bill, and I vote every time I vote against any bill that includes hate speech, and I thank the patron for taking hate speech out of there. I've had more time to think about this bill and what Senator Peterson has said. What went on in that game is just completely inexcusable, and I don't know how it was allowed to get out of hand by the officials, and what the school leagues did to the participants and the teams. It was just a horrific event. I just have a hard time putting this in the code, and so I've had some second thoughts. And Senator Peterson, I think, kind of sums it up, that we started getting into every type of event, and putting it in the code, we get into a lot of problems. So I have wavered on my vote from the sub, and I just wanted to inform the patron of that.
Senator Lewis, you're next in queue.
Madam Chair, I've actually got a question for Senator Suderline, since he's on the board. When you say the high school league is on it, what do you mean by on it?
So the high school league has had sanctions in place previously, and we were told it needs to be more aggressive. And so those have gone through, I've been in so many different meetings, but basically through this most recent calendar year, is anyone from the league here? I was gonna say, there's our counsel from McGuire Woods, who is paid to remember everything that we've done there. And it's important work, and I can't remember which day we did it.
Madam Chair,
so I'd like him to speak.
Could we hear from him?
At the request of the member, yes.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Not an attorney, but thank you, or counsel. I serve as a representative of the Virginia High School League.
Who are you?
I'm Mark Hubbard, and I'm with McGuire Woods Consulting.
They're not all attorneys.
This is a matter that we have been working on for some time. I don't have the specific dates of the meetings that have been held, but our executive committee has been putting together a program in which players, parents, and coaches will all receive training on inappropriate conduct on the field and the punishments that come for this inappropriate conduct on the field. Senator Evan contacted us and said that he wanted to put forth this legislation, and we consulted with him on the writing of the language, but Senator Suderline has described that we do not feel this is necessary at all because we're already doing it, and we don't support the legislation or necessarily oppose it.
Senator Evan?
Yeah, just wanted to clarify a few things. We did meet with the executive director of the VHSL 3 times. The language, he ran by him. We changed language multiple times at their request. I want to draw your attention to lines 21 through the end of the bill, because the VHSL is doing optional webinars on racism in sports and optional trainings. What this says is that each member school of the organization shall ensure that each student who participates in the competitions and the parent of each student and the coaches and the officials are trained. It just puts some teeth into it, making sure that they're trained. This is not an isolated incident. As the subcommittee heard, there were 2 schools in my district where the N-word was used, players were spat upon within a span of a few months, 2 in my district. And those schools would probably take the optional VHSL trainings. The issue is every school should abide by make the consequences known for the actions and use the trainings. We're not trying to say that there'll be something new that VHSL has to do, just that the schools would make sure that the players, much like parents hear about concussions, the players would have to hear, if you do this, this is the consequence, it's not allowed, and the officials and the coaches would take the training that VHSL has invested money in.
Okay. Madam Chair,
Senator Peterson?
I think maybe if this was a Section 1 bill.
I'd be happy to change it to a Section 1 bill
What do you think of that?
with the same words or similar wording.
No, it's not. It's in the code.
Well, it says the code is amended on line 10, but I don't know that if it was just a Section 1 bill with the same words, it'd be fine with me.
Madam Chair?
It would be better if it was telling the schools instead of telling the league.
Well, if you want to alter Section A for the floor, I'd be happy to do that. If they're doing it, I can just reword it, but they're doing it. It's just that Section B and C, I needed something to refer to as to what they're training people on.
Madam Chair? Yeah, Section 1 is something that is not continuing and general. As the chairman of the Code Commission, I can tell you this should not be in Section 1. It ought to be in the code. And I would like to speak in favor of the bill, too, because it's important that we put in the code certain that the schools and the high school league, I know a little bit about that, Virginia High School League, have some rules and standards which they can create, but bullying is a big issue. Ethnic and racially insensitive expressions should be not tolerated, and the fact that it's in the code says there's generally something standing behind this, and I support the bill 100%.
Senator Peterson?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what the vote count on is. I certainly wouldn't vote to put this in the code. I could not disagree more with my colleague. If the center wants to take it by and we can convert it to a Section 1 bill, I could support it, and that may be the number of votes he needs to get it out of committee, so.
Yeah, I'd like to, if we could take this by for the week, I'll speak to Senator
Without
Edwards
objection.
offline.
Without
Yeah,
objection,
thank you.
okay.
Thanks.
Senator Hodgman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see.
Senator Hodgman, I see now that we have patron,
Yes, for
D.
SB.
Steph, Senator D. Steph, if you want to return to Senate Bill 275.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, members of the committee, good morning.
Good morning.
We're passing something out real quick, and I wanted to just say we have a substitute here.
Can I
And
get a motion on the substitute? It's been moved and seconded. The substitute be agreed to. All in favor, say aye. No, same right. Senator D. Steph?
And Madam Chair, members of the committee, after listening in subcommittee to the concerns from everyone, we decided to put forth a substitute that basically is very, very clear and does only one thing. Just as if a child wants to play sports or if a child wants to go on a field trip, you have to have parental consent. You have to have the parents sign a slip of paper. So what this says, and I'll read it and be very quick, and the information that's being passed around is what was provided in the subcommittee. It's the material we're referring to in these books that are in our middle schools and our high schools. Yes, it's in an envelope. I know some members don't want to see it again. If you want to put it back in the envelope, we'll get it destroyed afterwards. Just a quick point of context on the information. We tried to get it copied over at Kinko's. They refused to do it. We tried to get it copied over at one of the Office Max places. They refused to do it. So we had to work with our folks here and clear the room and have one individual help us with the copying of the material. That's not what we're here to talk about. All we're talking about here is if the information that depicts a child engaged in fondling of sexual or genitalia parts of themselves or another, masturbation, sexual intercourse, cunnilingus, fellatio, analus, intercourse, or object sexual penetration is in a book for our children in middle school or high school and somebody below 18 that the parent has to sign it out. We're not trying to ban books. We're not trying to burn books. All we're trying to do is allow parents to say it's okay for my children to see this. Now, I know individuals will say, hey, I teach this in my courses. I teach this book. I teach that book. That's great. It's age appropriate. So what I'm trying to do here is say, let's do it age appropriate. Let's make sure that what we're doing in our middle schoolers and our high schoolers and those who are under 18, because if this material was in a movie, it would be R-rated or X-rated and would require parents to be there or approve of their child to see this. That's all we're asking. Just like you say it's okay for my child to play sports, parental signature, or to go on a field trip, when they read something that I personally would refer to as pornographic material, but others refer to it as literary works of art, I'm good with that, not trying to ban anything or burn anything. All I want to say is let's let the parents say it's okay for my child to see this. And I personally believe that this information that you're seeing in this envelope is devoid of any educational value. That's my personal opinion. I believe that it desensitizes our children and hypersexualizes them. Again, that's my opinion, shared by a lot of parents and shared by a lot of others who are child sexual experts. So with this, I just want to put it into the parents and say, if a child is going to check this book out, we want the parents to be able to say yes or no. That's it. We've simplified this down after listening to the subcommittee, listening to people on both sides of the bill. We've made it very simple, very easy. And there's nothing's open for interpretation. We put specifically in the code what we're referring to. So it doesn't have to be considered to be grooming. I know that was a big concern. It doesn't have to be anything else. We went very specific and very direct. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions or have any discussions. I know we had a bunch of speakers. We have one of the folks from our school board who's tied up right now at one of the press conferences, but I'm happy to answer any questions myself, entertain any comments, etc.
In queue, I have Senator Lewis and Senator Edwards in that order.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator DeStefano, you took out, actually, I circled in my version that could be considered. That was kind of wide open, and I see that you've taken that out, so that's an improvement. And the only other question I have is and this is existing language, mostly, is handling challenged, controversial, and you've added instructional materials, but where's the challenge piece? I mean, how's it challenged, I guess?
Madam Chair, Senator Lewis, so what I did is I tried to clarify existing code. So where school boards, librarians, and others, when they talk about challenged, controversial materials, I wanted to clarify that and try to put it down to instructional material. So we even tried to narrow it down further with existing code so that this could not be overinterpreted or overly broad. I tried to actually narrow it down even further with instructional material.
Madam Chair.
Senator Lewis?
Just follow. So all they have to do, according to this, as I read, is have a policy in place on how.
Madam Chair, Senator Lewis, yes, sir, that's correct.
Senator Edwards.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, and the patron, it already says under C, line 15, each school board shall ensure the policies developed giving consideration to the views of teachers, parents, and other concerned citizens addressing certain issues. It goes down to selection and evaluation of all instructional materials, etc. Doesn't that cover anything? Covers it all, doesn't it?
Madam Chair, Senator Edwards, actually it does,
Senator
if I may, Madam Chair, Senator Edwards, it actually doesn't cover it all. And what that says is on the selection process of what material goes into our libraries. And if we're familiar with the grooming standards section of code, libraries are actually exempt. And it's all libraries. Same with art museums and other things. So let's unwind back. And I'm just saying, okay, I'm not going to question, I don't want to get into a First Amendment freedom of speech on this. I don't want to get into that debate at all. I don't want to say pull books out of libraries or anything like that. I'm not into any of that. I just want to say if this material is in a book and it hits any of these specific things, nice and narrow, that we want parental consent. So parental written consent is required. Section C of the code really is talking about what goes into the libraries prior to that. I don't want to address that because the books are already in our libraries and it's already skimmed through that portion. What I'm trying to do is keep our children as innocent as possible, as long as possible, and keep it age appropriate. The key here is there are children that I really feel strongly that there's a certain time in one's life that in a international literary work of art like Lolita, it's okay for an adult to read that book. I mean, there's a reason it's a international literary work of art. So I don't want to stop that from being in our libraries at all. I want it to be age appropriate, and in a middle school, I want the parents to be able to say, yes, my child, it's okay for them to read this book. Or if that child's under 18, yes, it's okay for that child to read that book. Or see those graphic novels, that very sexually explicit pictures in graphic novels. So I just want to put it back to the parents and say, yes, it's up to the parent or the guardian to say it's okay. Just like it has to be okay for the parent or the guardian for that child to go on a field trip to the zoo, just like it's okay for that child to participate in a sports activity.
Madam Chair?
Senator Edwards.
And speaking to the bill, this is, school board's supposed to consider the parents, teachers, and concerned citizens on all instructional materials, but to point out certain things like it's pretty daggone close to book banning, and it's a serious infringement on First Amendment rights. And I think the bill should be defeated.
Madam Chair, if I may, Senator Edwards, I'm not trying to ban a book. I'm not trying to have it pulled out of a library. I'm not trying to burn a book. I'm trying to say that if it's sexually explicit material, I want the parent to say it's okay for a 10, 11, 12, up to a 17-year-old to see that information. That's all I'm saying. I want the parents to have that choice because I don't think it's age appropriate for a middle schooler to see these pictures. I truly don't. And frankly, if I can't copy it at Kinko's or Office Max, I don't think a middle schooler should be looking at it.
Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just comment. I've read the bill. I've read the materials. You know, just 10 minutes ago, I was lecturing. I don't think we should be involved in ref and high school sports. And I also don't think we should be involved in micromanaging school libraries. I think we do have guidance in the code already. And the problem is and I respect that the senator has narrowed this significantly, and it's not banning anything. He's correct. But the problem is that you're going to sweep up books that you don't intend to sweep up. And one of my favorite books of all time is a book called The Kite Runner, about a child growing up in Afghanistan. And that had an example of anal intercourse in it that was used to punish a young boy. And that was part of the narrative. And I'm not saying that to shock anybody or to get it pulled off a shelf. It's a wonderful book. It was a wonderful movie.
Okay.
I just think that you know, we try and set these parameters, just like in Senator Evans' bill, we try and set the parameters of how you play football. You know, we're getting outside of our lane, and so I will not be supporting the bill, although, again, I respect your effort.
Madam Chair, if I may, Senator Peterson.
Senator DeStefano, you going to wrap it up?
I don't have any issues with you or anybody else reading the book. I do have issues with my child reading that book when they're 10, 11, or 12. And frankly, I want to be able to say, yes, it's okay for my child to do so, or no, it's not okay for my child to do so. I want to have that parental choice at that specific time. There are some parents that would say, hey, it's age appropriate for a 10, 11, 12-year-old. There's others like me that said, hey, you know what? I'd rather my kids be in high school when they start reading something like that. And again, that's parental choice. I just don't want to desensitize and hypersexualize our children with some of this material, not saying the one you're talking about does that at all. I'm familiar with the book you're referring to. I just don't think I would let my 10, 11, 12-year-old read that. My 17, 18-year-old, let him read it in a minute, because it truly talks about a world situation and what's happening over there in Afghanistan. I truly understand that. But I'm saying, and Senator Peterson, just like with your child, at 10, 11, and 12, I'm not sure you'd probably let your child read that. Above that age, you probably would, and that's okay. But again, you as that parent should be the one making that choice, not just saying unilaterally, anyone can check it out, anyone can read it. So it's about age appropriateness, Madam Chair and Senator Peterson. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator DeStefano. I'm going to turn back to the committee, subcommittee chair. And I'd like to ask Senator Hashmi a question before you continue. Was there any conversation around the fact that most, even junior high school students now have smartphones and they can find anything they want?
Madam Chair, yes, I think we heard from speakers who pointed out that the gateway to a lot of material that parents might find objectionable is actually in the hand of just about every child, some as young as in elementary school. But I just want to address some of the concerns raised by the patron as well as committee members. In no way are parental rights being limited. If any child brings material home that the parent would find objectionable, the parent has every opportunity, as parents ought to regulate what his or her child is interacting with. So parental rights remain fully intact. It would take a rather precocious young reader to actually engage with some of the materials that were identified. For instance, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, very sophisticated reading that a sophisticated high school student or college student would engage in. And then also some of the issues that are raised in terms of parents not having a voice. Genderqueer, which is, I believe, in the packet distributed by the patron, has gone through extensive review, and it's a Fairfax County Public School Committee of High School Administrators, students, librarians, parents, specialists met to review and consider genderqueer, the excerpt of which is provided. The members read the book, and their findings were that the book is well written, it's a scientifically based narrative, and that they really affirmed its necessary role for some readers. Again, if a book is available in a library, it does not mean that it is being put in the hands of a child. It's not put in the hands of a child whose parents would object to it. It is simply there for access to the children who might want to engage with the materials. And again, the recommendation of the committee was that this bill be passed by indefinitely, and I so move.
It's been moved and properly second that Senate Bill 275 be passed by indefinitely.
Madam Chair, a point of.
Senator Lewis?
What happened
And
to the
Senator Cosgrove?
have we got, is the substitute in front of us, or is it the original bill?
No, this is the substitute.
We did not?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm sorry, that was a huge oversight. It's been moved and properly second that the substitute be
Madam-
adopted. I knew we had a substitute because Senator DeStefano waved it at me all day yesterday. But it's been moved and properly second that the substitute be adopted. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Substitute is adopted. Now we're back to the motion.
Madam Chair, thank you. The committee recommended that the substitute, I assume, also be passed by indefinitely, and I so move.
It's been moved and properly second that the substitute be passed by indefinitely. All in favor of that motion?
Madam Chairman.
Oh, Senator, I'm sorry, Senator Cosgrove, and you are in queue. I apologize.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it. I want to correct a couple of things that were said here. About, you can pull up anything you want to on your iPhone or your iPad. Parents have the ability to block content and block sites on iPhones, iPads, Androids, etc. So parental controls do exist. So to say that kids can pull up whatever they want if their parent is protective of them, that really is not the case. And secondly, and I think most importantly, this last election showed us that parents want to have more control about what is happening in their schools. We all watched that election, and we all know why the governor is sitting in that mansion right now. It had everything to do with parental control and parents having a say what happens to their children in our schools. Now, Senator DeSteph went to great lengths to provide exhibits that, in my view, are absolutely disgusting. And I would hate for my middle schooler to have access to that material without my permission. The other thing is, there's no guarantee that that child is going to bring the book home. He may just read it at school, or she may just read it at school, and the parent would have no earthly idea what that child is being exposed to. I think the substitute is a good compromise, and I hope that this committee will not just blindly and partisanly throw this out and tell parents, still, you have no say in what's happening in your school. Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Senator Saslaw.
So you think that if we pass this, the 15, 16, 17-year-olds, 14-year-olds have no way of finding this stuff anyway? It's just absurd. It's going to happen. I mean, I could understand it if this was confined to elementary school or 7th grade, but to say that you're going to prevent this or prevent kids from seeing or learning about this, when they're juniors and seniors and sophomores and freshmen in high school, is just patently absurd, particularly in today's world.
Madam
have a
Chair,
motion.
if I may respond quickly to Senator Saslaw.
Very quickly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Saslaw, these books are actually in our middle schools, which is 10, 11, and 12-year-olds. What I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to ban content. I'm not trying to burn books. I'm trying to make it age appropriate before we provide pornographic material to our children. And I, as a parent, want to say, yes, it's okay, or no, it's not. That's all I'm trying to do here. I believe it's very clear, and I believe as a parent, I should be able to have that option. And that's all I'm trying to do here is say, yes, it's okay for my 10, 11, 12-year-old to see this material. I'm not saying there's no educational value forever in it. I believe that at some age appropriate time that is appropriate. High school, and maybe a junior or senior. College, yes, that's where they're exploring life and trying to understand the world. Absolutely. But I don't believe a 10, 11, and 12-year-old that we're trying to protect their innocence should be desensitized in this manner and should have access to this material. I truly don't believe that. And I truly believe that everybody up on that dais has to believe the same thing. A 10 and 11, 12-year-old, there's no reason for that child to see this kind of information, this kind of material. Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, I apologize for trespassing on the committee's time.
We have a motion on the floor.
Doesn't confine it to that.
Senator Saslaw, we have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and properly second that the bill be PBI, passed by indefinitely. All in favor of that motion, please vote electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote? Senator Howell, how do you vote?
To pass by indefinitely, I vote aye.
Ayes 8, noes 7.
Ayes 8, no 7. The bill is passed by indefinitely. Senator DeSteffi.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you so very much and have a fantastic day today.
Thank you. You do the same, sir. Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next bill is SB 574, patroned by Senator Mason. And this bill is seeking to make a slight adjustment to the legislation that we had passed last year, whereby our public schools were able to open up for after-school and before-school care without the necessary, I'm sorry, I think I'm misreading the bill here.
That's the wrong one.
Senator Mason, you will probably be able to explain it better than I, because I think I was going on the other bill.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, Senator Hashmi's right. I did have another one that addressed directly down the path that we're going. I'm not certain what number that is. We can square that up in a sec, I think.
I understand.
If you're all right with 574, ma'am?
Yes, I am.
So 574, we're having substantial problems getting folks to be able to provide help in our daycares. And on the peninsula, we had 7 jurisdictions come together, put $1 million in a pot just to go out and make sure we were providing daycare for people, largely shipyards, frontline employees. We had a hard time spending the money because we didn't have childcare facilities out there and workers to do it. One problem we've had is a backlog of the background checks. All right, so there is the police, FBI fingerprinted background check, and there's the Child Protective Services, Social Services background check. What we're asking to do here is to make sure we still have the police fingerprinted FBI child background check for criminal activities. Once we have that, the person could then come in and work in the daycare, but not under supervision while the CPS, Social Services background check is still being processed.
Gotcha.
And that seems to be the delay. This does incorporate religious institutions who testified in support of it. And so that's the bill, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Hashmi.
It's been moved and properly second that Senate Bill 574 be reported, and I don't see that it's being asked to go to finance. It has no impact, so all in favor of that motion, please vote on the electronic voting board.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill is reported. Senator Mason.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, and thank you, Senator Mason. I apologize. That was the other bill I was thinking about. The next bill is SB 596, patroned by Senator Pillion, and this is focusing on our 4-H educational programs and activities. The patron of the bill pointed out that students who participate in 4-H are given opportunities to develop strong leadership skills and to develop new ways of integrating their learning with hands-on experiences. And the bill is coming from his own students, and it's asking that each local school board develop policies and procedures for students to make up missed work, and also grant an excused absence to students participating in 4-H educational programs. And this bill was recommended for reporting out of the subcommittee on a vote of 5-0, and I so move.
It's been moved and properly second that the bill be reported. All in favor of that motion, please designate on the electronic voting board. Those nays have the same right.
Senator Howell, how do you vote? Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Thank you.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. Senate Bill 596 passed. Senator Hashmi, does that conclude your report?
Madam Chair, yes, it concludes the report.
Okay, moving to the next subcommittee chair, Senator Locke. We'd like to hear from you on higher education from your subcommittee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First bill we have is Senate Bill 72 coming from Senator Edwards. This bill will establish the Virginia Museum of Transportation as a public entity and educational institution of the Commonwealth, and will be governed by a 15-member board.
You have an amendment?
Yes. Does this have an amendment? Yes, it has an amendment that removes the power of eminent domain from the museum, and I move that amendment.
It's been moved and properly second that the amendment be adopted. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Those have the same right, Senator Locke.
And with that amendment, the subcommittee recommended reporting Senate Bill 72 and re-referring to Senate Finance on a vote of 3 and 1 abstention. And I so move.
It's been moved properly second that Senate Bill 72 be, with the amendment, be reported and re-referred to Senate Finance. All in favor of that motion, please designate on electronic voting board.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Clerk,
Ayes.
close the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. Senate Bill 72 is reported and will be re-referred to Senate Finance. Senator Locke.
The next bill is Senate Bill 159 from Senator Hashmi, and there is a substitute, and I move the substitute.
It's been moved. Second, that the substitute to Senate Bill 159 be adopted. All in favor say aye. No, you said the same, right?
And
Senator Locke.
this bill prohibits public institutions of higher education from refusing to provide transcripts or diplomas for a current or former student on the grounds that the student owes a debt. And what the substitute does is removes the enforcement provision in the Virginia Consumer Protection Act and changes diploma to degree throughout the bill. And the subcommittee recommends reporting the bill on a vote of 3 to 1, and I'm so moved.
Can I get a second? It's been moved and properly second that Senate Bill 159, that the substitute be adopted, that the substitute to 159 be adopted, be reported. All in favor say aye. On the voting board, please.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Clerk, close roll. Senator Lewis.
Ayes 9, noes 4.
Ayes 9, noes 4. The bill is reported with the substitute. Senator Locke.
Next bill is Senate Bill 223 from Senator McPike, and you've seen this before. It has to do with establishing parameters for the compensation and representation of a student athlete related to the use of such student's name, image, or likeness. The bill prohibits any private institution or athletic association, athletic conference, or other organization from providing a prospective student athlete or a student athlete and with compensation for the use of his name, image, or likeness. Prohibits or preventing a student athlete from earning such compensation except in certain instances. Declaring a student athlete ineligible for intercollegiate athletic compensation because I would say he or she, earns such compensation or obtains such representation. The bill establishes several conditions and limitations relating to pre-agreement disclosures. And the subcommittee recommends reporting this Senate Bill 223 on a vote of 3 to 0, and I so move.
It's been moved and second that the bill be reported. All in favor, please designate electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill is reported. Senator Locke.
Next bill is Senate Bill 395, coming from Senator Edwards, with regard to the Roanoke Higher Education Authority, membership on the Board of Trustees. It adds the president of Virginia State University, which will be coming into the Higher Education Authority, and it removes the presidents of Averett University and Mary Baldwin College due to their no longer participating in the authority. And on a vote of 4 to 0, the subcommittee recommends reporting, and I so move.
It's been moved and properly second that that Senate Bill 395 be reported. All in favor of that motion, vote electronically. Nays have the same right.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Senator Howell votes aye.
Clerk, close roll.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill is reported. Senator Locke.
The next bill is Senate Bill 466, coming from Senator Surville, dealing with the Virginia College Savings Plan and establishing a Virginia College Equity Foundation and Fund. It would direct the board of the Virginia College Savings Plan to invest the surplus from the fund for prepaid tuition contracts, if any, of the Virginia College Equity Fund established by the bill. After some discussion by the patron recommends passing by indefinitely with a letter from the chair requesting JLARC to study. And on a vote of 4-0, I so move.
It's been moved and properly second that the bill be passed by indefinitely. All in favor of that motion, please so designate on electronic voting board.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill will be passed by indefinitely. Senator Locke, you have another bill?
Yes, Senate Joint Resolution 53 comes from the State Council of Higher Education, and it's their statewide strategic plan. It endorses the framework of mission, vision, goals, and strategic plan for the statewide strategic plan for the higher education that has been developed and approved by the State Council of Higher Education of Virginia as the Commonwealth's vision and plan for higher education, and requires SHEV to report annually for 6 years on the Commonwealth's progress toward achieving the plan's goals to the Governor, the General Assembly, Institution of Higher Education, and the public. And it's been recommended for reporting on a vote of 4-0, and I so move.
It's been moved and properly second that SJR 53 be reported. All in favor of that motion, vote aye. Nays have the same right.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Ayes 14.
His vote will be noted. Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. SJ 53 is reported.
And that concludes the committee's report.
Thank you, Senator Locke, for that report. Senator Barker has quite a robust report from Health Professions Subcommittee. Senator Barker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And what we have is at our last meeting, which was last Friday morning, we spent the entire meeting on one bill, which is Senate Bill 375, patroned by Senator Peterson, and it deals with the issues of optometrists. And there was, sorry about that.
That was the ophthalmologist calling.
That's right. Well, my eyes were good enough that I saw the phone and I was able to turn it off pretty quickly. So, yeah. But anyway, what this bill does is that it provides an opportunity for optometrists who have completed both training and education that would qualify them to be able to provide certain, just 3 types of laser surgery procedures, not the broad range of laser surgery, and that would be something that they would be able to provide if they meet the requirements that are built into the bill. There was extensive testimony on both sides of this bill, 20 minutes on each side. And I thought they did a very good job. Both sides did a very good job of sort of outlining their arguments and rationale in terms of their position. And the committee recommended on a 5-3 vote that the bill be reported. And with that, I will make that motion.
Madam Chair. Peterson.
Senator Peterson.
First of all, I want to thank Senator Barker for that synopsis. I've been talking with both sides of this debate, and we've agreed to take this bill by for the week. There's good, I think there's a little bit of maybe a way to kind of find a common ground here, but I do think we need another week on it. So thank you.
I'm fine with that. So.
Thank you for your report, Senator Barker, and without objection, and at the request of the patron, the bill will go by for the week. That is, Senate Bill 375 will go by for the week. Thank you for your report, Senator Barker. Report coming now from the Health Subcommittee, Senator Lewis.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. The Health Committee took up first Senator Peterson's SB 46. And what that bill did, Madam Chair, is make changes to allow for greater standing to challenge quarantine orders. And so essentially what it says is that anyone that is impacted or affected by a quarantine order, not just the subject of a quarantine order, but affected by a quarantine order, may challenge and appeal an order of quarantine through the court system. And so that was heard by the committee, and it was recommended on a vote of 5-0 that the bill be recommended for reporting, and I so move.
Could you also add to that, the chair of Senate Finance requested that this bill go to Senate Finance?
Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, yes. It be recommended be reported and then re-referred to Senate Finance.
It's been moved and properly second that Senate Bill 46 be reported and re-referred to Senate Finance. All in favor or objectionable, please vote on the electronic voting panel.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
I'm sorry, mine is.
Aye.
Your vote is noted, Senator Howell.
Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill is reported and will be re-referred to Senate Finance. Senator Lewis.
And the next, excuse me, Madam Chair. The next bill we took up was
Could
Senate
you
Bill
do the
86.
substitute? You have a substitute?
Yes, ma'am, there is a substitute for 86, I'm sorry. And I would move the substitute.
It's been moved and properly second that the substitute be adopted. All in favor of the substitute, say aye.
Aye.
Nays have the same right. Thank you. Senator Lewis.
And so what Senate Bill 86, by the substitute, Madam Chair, deals specifically with, as the definitions are laid out there, not by name, but by the definitions, Virginia International Raceway. And so what it does is direct the Department of Health to amend its regulations to exempt that defined entity, to require them to provide and maintain portable toilet facilities at the ratio of at least one toilet for every 75 campers and one toilet in compliance with the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. And so what that means, Senator Stanley explained to us that the need for this is obviously it facilitates visitors to the International Raceway for races and so forth who, without requiring them to have the same standalone sanitary facilities that would otherwise be required. So it was recommended on a vote of 5-0 that the substitute be recommended for reporting, and I so move.
It's been moved and second that Senate Bill 86 be with the substitute be reported. All in favor of that motion, say aye, or no, vote electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Close the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The substitute will be reported. Yes, will be reported. Thank you so much.
Next, Madam Chair, we took up Senator Hanger's Senate Bill 119, and there is a substitute for that, and I would move the substitute.
It's been moved
Second.
and second that the substitute be adopted. All in favor of the substitute being adopted, please say aye. Aye. Noes have the same right. Senator Lewis.
Okay. And so what Senator Hanger's bill, or the substitute, does, the subcommittee recommended adoption, requires the community services boards and healthcare providers to mutually consult and share information relevant to the treatment of a person being evaluated for involuntary temporary detention. And I think Senator Hanger's point was to try and make sure that all the information was out there when the person was, again, being evaluated for a involuntary temporary detention order. It was recommended by a vote of 5-0 that the substitute be recommended for reporting, and I so move.
It's been moved and second that the substitute be reported on Senate Bill 119. All in favor, please vote electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. Senate
And,
Bill 119, with the substitute will be reported.
Next, Madam Chair, we took up Senator Mason's 192. We also recommended that we recommended rolling in Senator Locke's 617 into Senator Mason's 192. So at the outset, procedurally, I'd make that motion.
It's been moved and properly second that the bill be reported with the substitute. All in favor, please say aye.
Madam Chair?
I'm sorry. Roll it in. I'm sorry that you will roll the two together.
Rolled in.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Senator,
Madam Chairman, 1 second.
yes.
We actually have to take a recorded vote.
On the roll in.
So just to be clear, we have
Correction, yes, okay. You're
Senator
correct.
Locke's Bill 617 being rolled into Senate Bill 192, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
So that is
That is
properly
the
in
motion.
place? Yes, ma'am.
okay. All in favor of that motion, please, let's vote electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no
And-
zero. Thank you so much.
Madam Chair, we conceptually agreed on a substitute for Senator Mason's bill, and I see he's here, and apparently we do have that substitute.
On 617.
And so I would move the substitute, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and properly second that Senate Bill 617 be adopted. All in, be
190.
reported. Oh, Senator Mason. Aye.
192.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator Lewis.
Madam Chair?
Substitute for
That
192.
just heard a voice somewhere.
Yes. So we're substituting 192.
Yes.
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 All in favor of that bill?
This is the motion to substitute, ma'am?
Yes, we did.
Okay, we can do a voice vote on that and then
Okay.
vote on the bill.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Nays,
Aye.
same right. Thank you. Senator Lewis?
I'll let Senator Mason speak to the substitute if I could.
Senator Mason, you
Fine,
have the
Madam-
floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, 2 years ago, Senator Locke had a bill to expand those that could run our local health departments, and it sailed out of the Senate 40-0. Then there were some issues. So I came upon this bill this year when I was at a vaccine clinic talking to a young lady who was talking about the organization thereof and said, I couldn't be because you're not a doctor. And so we started talking about, is there a way that we could expand the heads of our local health departments, not in excluding physicians, but expanding those that could be. The substitute before you suggested some of the master's or doctoral degree in the area of public health. Senator Barker has a master's degree in the area of the topic, but it's not named the way we initially had it. So we're trying to make sure that people that have higher training in public health would be qualified. Senator Lewis has a gentleman pseudo running his health department on the Eastern Shore, 17 years experience, 13 years there, but he can't get the top job. He's called the chief operating officer, but he doesn't have these academic requirements. So we thought we'd add in otherwise qualified for the position by the commissioner. Now, over the years, because it's been the matter of course that doctors have run health departments, we have a series of things in the code that require that a doctor do, because that's the way it's always done. So you'll see beyond that, we say if there's no physician, if they're not a physician or there's no license on staff, they'll enter into a consulting agreement to execute prescribing duties and consult on matters. So that's our substitute, Madam Chair. I wanted to make mention that the Medical Society has worked really well with us the whole way. Last night, they came, and in Wisconsin, it seems that they add essentially 3 years of experience in the field. And so I didn't include that in the substitute, but Mr. Johnson, I believe, is here. And so I said I would throw it out for discussion to the committee. My first blush thought is right now we have a vacancy in Cumberland Plateau and in Mount Rogers. Maybe the commissioner would say that someone straight out of college with a master's would be better to run the show than having no one there. I don't know. But I wanted to present that to the committee. If the committee thinks 3 years' experience in the field is something we ought to move forward with, I'd be happy to accept the Medical Society's amendment to the substitute. If not, you see the substitute we currently have before us.
Madam Chair, I think it looks like 3 years of experience is in there.
Oh, did you include that? Well, excuse me, Madam Chair. It seems the Medical Society's got better contacts around here than I do. I have no objection to Mr. Johnson having done this longer than I have. So it is in there. I beg your pardon. But so now I'll highlight if you think it should stay, I'm fine with it. If you'd like it to come out for the reasons I just suggested, we can do that as well.
Madam Chair, and I would also point out, but it goes on to say, and maybe Mr. Johnson can speak, or be otherwise qualified for the position as determined by the commissioner. So it sounds like there's a way around that 3 years in certain circumstances.
Which was the language that we came up with coming out of subcommittee. Yes, sir. So that it does seem to provide.
It's been moved and properly second. Just make sure that we're clear that this is Senate Bill 192. That's the bill that Senator Locke's bill has been rolled into.
Yes, ma'am.
With the substitute,
Yes, ma'am.
all in favor, please designate electronically. Nays have the same, right?
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk, close roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill is reported with the substitute. Thank you so much, Senator Mason.
Thank you, Madam
Back to you,
Chair.
Senator Lewis.
Next, Madam Chair, we took up Senate Bill 361 by Senator Stewart, and and actually there's a substitute, and I will move the substitute for that, Madam Chair.
There's a motion on the substitute and a second. All in favor of the substitute, please say aye.
Aye. So the original bill proposed by Senator Stewart made the Marcus alert system that we adopted last year or the year before optional. And so we heard testimony on that. Well, actually, we adopted the substitute straight away, pretty much, and that reduced it to, for populations of 80,000 or less, it could be optional participation. And then we heard testimony from the community services boards and also from the Sheriff's Association about the difficulties, not so much with resources, but also with staff, as to how smaller localities, particularly smaller rural localities, would be able to implement the Marcus alert system. So the idea is that we can let these larger localities and community service boards start down the path to implementing the Marcus alert system, and then hopefully that will be instructive to the smaller systems, and also hopefully the labor shortage, which we heard our Secretary of Health designate, refer to as a workforce crisis in behavioral health, resolve itself in the wake of this pandemic. So it was the motion of, or the recommendation of the committee on a vote of 4-0 that the substitute be recommended for reporting. And I so move.
It's been moved. Properly seconded, Senate Bill 362 with the substitute be approved, reported.
Sorry, 361, ma'am?
That's correct.
361, that is correct.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk close roll.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Ayes 14, no zero. The substitute, Senator Locke. Senator Locke's panel is not working.
Ma'am, how do you vote? Senator Locke, your vote will be noted.
Thank you.
Next.
Ayes 15, no zero. Senate Bill 361 with substitute will be reported.
Next, Madam Chair, we took up Senator Barker's 436, and actually there's an amendment on that, Madam Chair, on line 26. After.
Can you move the amendment?
Yes,
Line
I
amendment?
move the amendment.
It's been moved and properly seconded that the line amendment be adopted. All in favor say aye. Aye. Noes have the same right.
And I think, and Senator Barker can speak to this if I'm incorrect, it looks like it's more of a language preference than anything substantive, in that we took out leverage the expertise of and replaced it with contract with. So that was the extent of the amendment. And so this requires the Board of Health to consult with the Virginia Telehealth Network in amending and maintaining the statewide telehealth plan. It requires the Board of Health to contract with the Virginia Telehealth Network or another Virginia-based non-governmental organization to provide direct consultation in the advisory group and groups tasked by the board with implementation and data collection, track implementation of the statewide telehealth plan, and facilitate changes to the statewide telehealth plan. So it was the recommendation of, I understand, Madam Chair, with this amendment, there is now financial impact, and it would need to go to finance. So I would move that the committee voted 5-0 to recommend reporting as amended, and so I would so move with the addition that it also be re-referred to finance.
You heard the motion? And the second? All in favor, please designate electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk close roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. Senate Bill 436 will be reported with the amendment and re-referred to Senate Finance on the recommendation of the subcommittee chair. Senator Lewis.
And next, Madam Chair, we took up Senator McDougal's Senate Bill 580, and it was with the consent of Senator Evan, who had a similar measure, Senate Bill 626. It was voted by, or recommended by the subcommittee that Senator Evans' 626 be rolled into Senator McDougal's 580, and I would so move.
It's been moved properly second that the bills be rolled together. All in favor, or incorporated, all in favor, please say aye. No, we need to vote electronically. Thank you.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk close roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. The bill is incorporated. Senator Lewis.
And so what Senator McDougal's bill did, Madam Chair, was remove the triennial audit for hospices and home care organizations. But there was an amendment offered in subcommittee, which I would move here, that removes hospices. And so now it would remove the triennial audit requirement for home care organizations. It removes hospices from that.
Second.
It's been moved And seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Senator Lewis?
And so finally, Madam Chair, it was the recommendation that the 580 be recommended for reporting as amended on a vote of 5-0, and I so move.
It's been moved and properly second that Senate Bill 580 be reported with the substitute. All in favor, please so designate electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk, call the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero. Back to you, Senator Lewis.
That completes my report. The remaining two bills were rolled into other pieces of legislation, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Well, it appears at this point that there's only one bill left before the committee, and that's my bill. Or are there three? Yeah. The Senator D. Steph bill?
Yes,
I think that was
Madam Chair.
re-referred, Senate Bill 709 was re-referred to Senate Finance. Am I correct?
Madam Chair, we still need to vote on that.
Okay, all right.
Which bill are we pulling up?
Senate Bill 709, the Education Improvement Scholarship Tax Credit, the sunset. It's on the page 1.
Move to report, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded that the bill be reported. That's Senate Bill 709. All in favor?
Madam,
No.
The
Does it have to
Senate
go to
Finance? Yes. Clerk, are there any other instructions?
I believe that has to go to finance, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, we do have to vote. All in favor of the motion? Because I think I did get a second.
My apologies.
All in favor? Please designate electronically.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 15, no zero.
Ayes 15, no zero, and I think we have two. Senator Newman is back.
Madam
Because
Chair-
I didn't see you, because I thought I was supposed to
no,
send your
no,
bill
ma'am.
over to next week.
Well, this is the smallest bill, if you don't mind me doing it from here, Madam Chair.
That's fine.
It's just the bill that catches up on all the controlled substances for Class 2, 3, 4, and 5. This adds 5 more synthetic opioids, 7 hallucinogenics, and a few others. These are all, as you know, every year they go through the Board of Pharmacy. They are in consultation with the Department of Forensic Science. They put them on an emergency list, and it's just us to add the list. If the chair would not make me read the chemical names, that would be very, very helpful. But these have all gone through the normal process, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Newman. Any questions from members of the committee?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second that Senate Bill 709 be reported. All in favor? And be referred to finance. All in favor, please.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
My apologies. As the clerk, I was confused about the bill that was up. So we have 759.
759.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Clerk, close the roll.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Ayes 14, no zero. Wait a minute.
How do you vote, Madam
I'm
Chair?
voting yes on Senator Newman's bill. Yes, I am.
Your vote will be noted.
My finger's not working.
No, I've got you.
He got me.
Yes, ma'am.
Clerk, close the roll. Ayes 15, no zero. The bill is reported. Okay, is there one more bill? Yes, it is. Okay, which one is that? Son a lot.
We now will have Senate Bill 616 from Senator Lucas.
Okay, that's me. If you all don't mind, I'll do it from here. Okay, Senate 616 is the Virginia Literacy Act, Early Student Literacy, Evidence-Based Literacy Instructions. And I am proud to have worked with Delegate Carrie Corner, who has introduced a companion bill, which is House Bill 319 in the House, and a team from the University of Virginia School of Law, state and local government policy clinics to help develop this legislation. One of the law students who worked on the bill, Christina Kelly, will be here she is here, to walk through the bill, but I want to take a moment to explain why this bill is so very important.
Is there a substitute?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, I have a substitute and I so move.
It's moved and seconded that we adopt the substitute. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, substitute's adopted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, too many of our children in Virginia are failing to read at grade levels. Specifically, the number of first and second grade students who are at high risk for reading difficulties hit a historic high in 2021, with almost 2 times as many students being identified as at risk for reading failures as compared to pre-pandemic times. Second, these high failure rates are even worse for our children of color, our children from low-income backgrounds, and children with disabilities. Third, we need to remember that low reading levels have been a long-standing problem in Virginia. They just got worse during the pandemic. For example, 2019 national level data indicated a sharp drop in literacy rates for Virginia's 4th and 8th graders. In other words, when it comes to teaching Virginia children to read, the status quo is simply not acceptable. And we know that bad things happen to children who are not at reading levels by 3rd grade. They are 4 times more likely to leave high school without a diploma and more likely to get involved in the criminal justice system and have bad health outcomes. One way to stop the school to prison pipeline is to make sure that all our children know how to read by 3rd grade. The good news is that research shows that 90 to 95% of children can learn to read at grade levels if they receive the right kind of instructions and support. The very kind of instructions and support Virginia students will receive if you pass Senate Bill 616. I urge you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, to pass this very important bill. And I would now like to ask Christina Kelly, who is here remotely, to, no, she's not remotely, she's sitting right there, I see her, to speak to the bill. Thank you. Christina? Where is she? There she is. Where is she?
She's coming.
I actually am remote.
She is remote.
There you are. Okay.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Christina Kelly, and I'm a student in the State and Local Government Policy Clinic at the University of Virginia School of Law under the supervision of Professor Annie Block. I have been working with Delegate Coyner, Senator Lucas, and Senator McClellan to develop and draft SB 616. The views I express today are mine alone and not those of the law school or the university. As Senator Lucas made clear, the Virginia Literacy Act is designed to reverse a trend that 20 years of data has revealed. More and more kindergarten through 3rd grade students are not learning how to read. I'm here today to ask you to pass SB 616. This bill seeks to implement a comprehensive approach to reading education across the Commonwealth. SB 616 has 4 essential elements, all of which are necessary to achieve progress and reform. First, the bill will require teacher preparation programs to provide coursework in science-based reading research and evidence-based literacy instruction for elementary and special education credential candidates so that they have the foundation needed to teach young students to read. Second, this bill requires current elementary and special education teachers to take a professional development course in science-based reading research and evidence-based instruction to build their knowledge so that they can effectively teach early literacy. Third, this bill aligns the core curriculum taught to children in kindergarten through 3rd grade with screening and intervention services so that all components of literacy education use a science-based approach. If evidence-based practices are embedded in the core curricula, fewer students will need intervention services to begin with. Finally, the bill allows for a collaborative relationship between schools and parents to ensure their child's success. Parents can be active partners in their students' reading plan and will have access to free online literacy resources provided by the Department of Education so that they can help their child improve their reading skills at home. Other states have taken similar approaches as SB 616 with impressive success. In 2013, Mississippi implemented a comprehensive plan similar to our bill, and they have since seen positive outcomes in reading achievement. And I really want to emphasize that point that Senator Lucas made about research showing that 90 to 95% of children can learn to read if they're taught correctly. This is something that we can achieve, and SB 616 is designed to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Christina.
you.
Madam Chair.
Okay. Yes, Senator Lucas. Are there any other speakers to speak in favor of Senate Bill 616? Yes, ma'am.
Well, good morning. My name is Jillian Balo, and I'm the Commonwealth's newest Superintendent of Public Instruction. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for bringing this bill forward and giving me the opportunity to speak on it. This is the last bill today, I believe, in this committee, but it is certainly not the least. But it is, if you can't read, there's no disagreement that literacy is a foundational skill for not only success in school, but success in life as well. Governor Youngkin agrees and has taken this bill as part of his legislative agenda. You've likely heard of the Matthew effect. Lots of times it's used in economics where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Yes.
It is no more staggering than in literacy instruction, especially in the early grades. According to NAEP, the nation's report card, between 2009 and 2019, the best readers improved their scores by 2 points. The lowest readers decreased their reading skills by 7 points. There's more to that story, but just to give you that Matthew effect, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer when we don't adequately and scientifically teach students how to read. Decades of research prove this, decades of research back this up. There are 5 main domains in literacy instruction that I won't go through today, but a scientifically based reading instructional program must be steeped in a scope and sequence and intensity that is appropriate for every student to learn how to read. This includes the selection of curricular materials, assessments, teacher training, alignment of higher education, and so many other things. What Senate Bill 616 does is it really creates a playbook or a framework, if you will, to house scientifically based reading research and scientifically based reading instruction so that it is more readily available to every student across the Commonwealth. There are specific actions that a state should take, and I'm so proud as a new Virginian of now 12 days, that Virginia is taking this important step in this direction because it really does provide the playbook for us to ensure that all teachers are trained, all teachers are supported, all leaders are trained, all curriculum is aligned to the science, and all students receive the adequate scope, sequence, and intensity of reading instruction.
Madam Chairman,
Yep.
there's only 30 seconds left, and we've got a lot of people in the queue.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you. I will end my comments there, and thank you again, Madam Chairwoman, for bringing this bill forward.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Christian Martinez. I'm an advocacy specialist at CASA. CASA is a national immigrant organization that serves 10,000 immigrant, Latino, and working class Virginians. CASA supports SB 616 as well as the companion bill of Delegate Corner HB 319. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Mike Asip, I'm with the Virginia Council of Administrators of Special Education. Many special education teachers have received this training, but it's important that it's for all teachers, K-3 and special ed teachers around the Commonwealth. This will help close that reading gap that we've talked about. Thank you very much for your sponsorship. Senator Lucas and McClellan.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of committee. I am Twirling Seward, and I am the legislative liaison for the Virginia State Literacy Association. I want to say that this bill addresses an issue of utmost importance for the children across this Commonwealth. And it's critical in meeting the literacy needs of all students. And I can be really short, or if you want me to keep on going.
Be very short.
Really short?
You're winning.
I am going to trust that the children of this Commonwealth will significantly benefit from this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move to report as amended, Madam Chair.
It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 616 be reported as amended. All.
Madam Chair,
Does this have
I
to
believe
go
it needs to go to
to finance? It's not this, oh, yes. It's been moved and seconded that Senate Bill 616 be reported and re-referred to finance. All those in favor, please vote.
Senator Howell, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ayes 15, no 0.
Ayes 15, no 0. The bill is reported with a substitute and re-referred to Senate Finance. Thank you so much. And how shall I refer to you, Madam Secretary? Superintendent. Madam Superintendent. And before you leave, I just want to tell you how much I appreciated the remarks that you made in the subcommittee a few days ago.
Thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyed that. Look forward to working with you. There being no further business, I can't say the committee should rise because the committee is gone.